Hello everyone, welcome to my review of Season 3, Episode 4 of The Flash, titled The New Rogues. Before I go any further, I just want to say that there will be spoilers in this review. As the title suggests, we get a glimpse of two new additions to The Flash's Rogues Gallery, and that is Mirror Master and Top. The Mirror Master has the ability to move through mirrors and trap people inside mirrors and things like that, and Top has this ability to create a sense of vertigo in her opponents. Kind of knocks them off balance, kind of screws with their head a little bit, as we saw in this episode. What is interesting about this episode is that we got a lot of romance in this episode, more so than I ever remember seeing on this show. We got to see romance between Barry and Iris, between Wally and Jesse, between Top and the Mirror Master, as well as a little bit of romantic angle between Joe and that woman who works for the DA's office. Unfortunately, no romantic angle for Caitlin or Cisco, but as we saw in the past, they've had their romantic trials that haven't gone so well. We get more training with Jesse Quick with the Flash team, and it was very cool to see her in her full suit running alongside Barry inside that Flash training facility, inside the particle accelerator. And we saw a little bit of instruction between her and the Flash. The Flash is really trying to coach her up, trying to teach her how to assess situations, how to adjust speed and stuff like that. It was a very interesting team up because we had never seen two speedsters team up together. We'd always seen one good speedster versus a bad speedster. We've never seen them kind of tackle a situation as a team, which was very interesting to see. We also saw a lot of that romance factor in when it came to Barry's relationship with Joe, because Joe and Barry have always been a father and son type of relationship, and now that Barry is dating Joe's daughter, it leads to a very weird kind of feeling between them, because Barry doesn't feel comfortable with Joe seeing Iris and Barry in this way. Joe, I also think, feels weird about it as well. Iris, on the other hand, not so much. She understands, possibly, about how her father feels, but she also thinks that the problem lies between Barry and her father. So in this episode, we get a lot of awkwardness between Joe and Barry, specifically when Iris is in the room. It reaches a boiling point where Iris pretty much says that they have to sit down and work it out themselves. And that is where we find that the problem really lies with Barry. And I can kind of understand his predicament. He wants to respect Joe because he loves Joe so much and all the things Joe has done for him, but he also has loved Iris since he probably first met her, so it's a very awkward type situation for him. But by the end of the episode, they seem to have worked things out. When it comes to Wally and Jesse, on the other hand, things are a little different in the romance department, because Jesse is only here for a short amount of time, so Wally really doesn't want to get too attached to her initially because he knows that she's just going to be leaving very, very soon, and it's going to be very difficult for him and her to part ways. But he kind of throws caution to the wind and says, might as well enjoy the time we have. I also feel that we're going to be seeing Jesse Quick more later on. I don't think this is the last we've seen of her, specifically since she's still relatively new when it comes to her experience with her powers. So in my opinion, she's probably going to need further training from Barry. Harrison Wells having to go back to Earth 2 leaves a kind of void when it comes to Team Flash, because this version of Harrison Wells has been very integral when it's come to his role in the Team Flash. So they decide that they're going to try to find another Harrison Wells out there in the multiverse, and they settle upon a guy who is from Earth 19, who is this very kind of hipper version of Harrison Wells, if that's the way you put it, maybe a cooler version of Harrison Wells. It's also very interesting that apparently he is not needed on his Earth, I guess at all, because he can make the trip between Earth 19 and Earth 1. It's also very interesting that they have this ability to be able to go to specific Earths and get people from there. Is that going to play in later on? Because once you've opened up these gateways to this multiverses, that sounds like it could be a very dangerous thing. Also, with this access to these different multiverses, that allows for access to the universe that Supergirl is on. And I know there's supposed to be this big crossover event later on in the season between all of the major shows. So I'm wondering, is that how they're going to get Supergirl into the Arrowverse? Or vice versa. Because last season we got to see a very cool crossover episode between The Flash and Supergirl, where The Flash ended up being able to travel to Supergirl's universe. And with that opens up all kind of avenues of possibilities, because if you are watching the Supergirl show, we're getting a lot more elements in there. We're getting things like Superman and Martian Manhunter and aliens and stuff like that. So it's going to be very interesting how much crossover we're going to get with these different elements from the different universes. One of my favorite parts of the episode is we get to see our Caitlin Snow use her Killer Frost powers. Harry and Cisco come up with this idea, but it's not quite working. So in that moment, I knew Caitlin had to step in and assist, and she does it secretively because she's still very hesitant when it comes to revealing her powers, even to her friends. I have a feeling we are going to get a revelation of her powers relatively soon, because when it comes to these shows and secrets, they usually end up coming out sooner rather than later. I really liked how they were able to utilize the powers of the villains in this episode. We got to see a lot of cool effect stuff when it came to the Mirror Master's powers and his ability to move in and out of glass structures. Very interesting. Also, we got to see the way Top uses vertigo and kind of shakes up the screen and makes everything blurry to where you're dizzy and fall over, as we saw with Jesse Quick. Those two powers seemed to be very effective when it came to combating Team Flash. They struggled mightily when it came to the Mirror Master and Top. Overall, I have to say, I really liked this episode of The Flash. I thought it was better than the previous episode, Magenta. I thought the villains were better. I thought they posed more of a threat than the previous villain we saw. Also, we got to see a lot of character stuff, specifically when it comes to character romances and stuff like that, which is a part of the shows now, and not only on Flash, but in the other shows. As viewers, I guess we kind of have to accept that that's a part of the show. Also, we got to see a new introduction of sorts of a new Harrison Wells, which is going to be interesting going forward, because is this Harrison Wells what he seems to be, kind of this nice, jovial guy, or is he kind of have this evil streak in him? We're not quite sure. I mean, he's a brand new version of Harrison Wells. This has been my review of Season 3, Episode 4 of The Flash, titled The New Rogues. If you like this video, please check out my other episode reviews for the other superhero-related television series.